You'll trigger forces you don't fully understand. Stop acting as though you know what's best for me, Laelani shot back, her breath hitching on the edge of anger. Aren't you the one who has been whispering about justice and unveiling secrets? Why are you so afraid? Desmond stepped closer, his stature imposing yet warm, drawing her in. The emotional gulf between them was palpable, a tension threaded with unspoken desires. I am afraid of losing you, he said, softly, almost a plea. The sincerity of his words caused her to falter. Are you? Or are you afraid for yourself? She challenged, her eyes narrowed with fierce resolve. Their moment was interrupted as the stranger watched intently, amusement flickering in his gaze. There's intensity here, he remarked casually, though the undertone of urgency beneath was unmistakable. But surely, your fight is not just for freedom. There is unfulfilled passion, isn't there? Something deeper that binds you two. The air thickened as Desmond and Laelani's eyes locked. In that fleeting second, the world around them faded. Unspoken emotions poured from their gazes, hurt, desire, a desperate need for connection. It was visceral, raw, a swirling tempest that surged between them. I need to know you're safe, Desmond whispered, his voice husky, his eyes fiercely locked onto hers. Whatever this man offers, you know what you risk. Then stand with me, Laelani breathed, fervently leaning closer. Help me fight. Mina, the stranger interjected, feigning innocence as if their emotional turmoil was a theatrical performance. Life has a way of pushing people together for— Enough! Desmond snapped, his composure snapping like a thin thread pulled taut. A deep silence enveloped them, frayed edges of their hearts lurking beneath. This is not a game. No, it's not, Laelani retorted, her indignation rising with unexpected fervor. And I've spent too long living for someone else. Desmond's expression softening, leaning closer still. I refuse to let you make this choice alone. The air crackled around them, palpable and electric, as they hovered at an edge on the verge of something monumental, a realization that might ignite a new course of both their lives. Just then, the murmur of pressing footsteps approached, demanding urgency in a moment already fraught with tension. In this darkness, sparks of light can both illuminate or scorch, the stranger said, gauging their internal struggle. Choose your path wisely. Laelani's heart thudded, torn between the call of revolution and the ache of an unquenched desire, each sharp, each limitless. Time is running out, Desmond warned, drawing back slightly, tension still threading between them, as shadows deepened around the impending confrontation. Scene 43, caught in the act. A restless wind swept through the garden, rustling the leaves with a frantic energy that mirrored Laelani Sinclair's racing heart. She stood just outside the grand manor, peering into the gathering twilight, catching fleeting glimpses of clouds rolling together, dark and ominous. It was as if the very sky was plotting against her, against them. She inhaled sharply, adjusting her shawl against the unseasonably cool breeze, all her senses heightened, a mere chill now foreboding. Desmond Carver emerged from the shadows of the marble columns, his form graceful yet tense like a coiled spring. We need to move quickly, he murmured, his breath misting in the cool air, revealing the urgency simmering beneath his calm facade. His dark eyes found hers, a potent blend of reassurance and concern, igniting a fire within her that settled around her heart like warm embers. What if he hears us? Laelani whispered back, her voice barely rising above the rustling leaves. The thought of her husband lurking somewhere in the house made her skin prickle, sending a chill deeper than the night air. Then we improvise, Desmond replied, a hint of a smirk dancing on his lips, attempting levity in their perilous dance of secrecy. It dropped away quickly, though, as tension seized him once again. I've drawn up the plans for our exit. It's now or never. The scent of damp earth mingled with the fragrance of blooming roses, intoxicating and suffocating all at once. As if sensing the shift in atmosphere, the clouds churned above, darkening the manor's facade. What about the others? Laelani's brow furrowed, her concern reaching beyond herself and Desmond, threading through their labyrinth of intrigue. Viola and the children, what will happen to them? We'll figure it out, he assured her with a fervor that momentarily eased her doubts. We can't let fear dictate what we do. The moment we allow him to control us. His voice trailed off as he glanced toward the manor, a dim light flickering in the expansive windows. betraying lives unaware of the tempest brewing outside. Heat rushed to Laelani's cheeks, and she stepped closer, feeling the warmth of Desmond's body radiating against the cool air between them. "You don't understand," she breathed, desperation inked into the corners of her words. "He's dangerous, but everyone thinks they're safe. They don't see what I see." She hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. "There'll be collateral damage." A tense silence hung between them, the weight of their choices pressing down like the impending storm. Desmond's dark gaze softened, searching hers as if he could read the very depths of her soul. "I won't let anyone harm you," he said fiercely, reaching for her hand. The contact sent a jolt of energy racing through her veins, grounding her amidst chaos. Before she could respond, a loud crash from within the manor shattered the moment. Their expressions transformed, surprise turned to fear as they exchanged a quick glance. "That sounded like it came from the study," Laelani said, barely suppressing a gasp. Suddenly, the stakes escalated, tightening like a noose around their throats. "Stay close," Desmond instructed, his demeanor shifting instantly to that of a protector. The weight of responsibility settled squarely on his shoulders. He was not just a butler now, but a guardian in the face of danger. They dashed through the garden, their footsteps silent against the damp grass, the light from the manor dimming as they fell into the shadows. Inside the manor, they skidded to an abrupt stop, just outside the study. Laelani's pulse thrummed in her ears as Desmond pressed his ear against the heavy oak door, straining to catch any sound. "It's him," he muttered, eyes narrowing, and like the crack of thunder, uncertainty roared within her. "What do we do?" Laelani's voice trembled as panic surged within her. Desmond turned to her, intense determination shining through. "We wait. For now." In that moment, as the wind howled outside and worry crackled in the air like electricity around them, Laelani could feel the closeness of their hearts, racing against danger as if declaring their own unyielding will. The sky trembled overhead, and the very earth beneath their feet demanded action that would either lead them toward freedom or deeper into the storm's eye. "Whatever happens, just remember," Desmond whispered, a glimmer of a smile amidst urgency, pulling her closer. "I promised you a way out." The dryness in her throat couldn't conceal the resolve swelling within her, and as the door creaked open slightly, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her, urging her toward the unknown. It was in moments like these that life held its breath, waiting to see if they could seize the future they were crafting together, or if it would slip from their grasp like rain on a summer's day. Scene 44. The final countdown. The morning sun struggled to break through the heavy dark clouds that hung ominously above the sprawling Sinclair estate. The opulent manor, filled with antique furniture and lavish decor, now felt like a gilded cage to Laelani Sinclair. The damp air clung to her skin, amplifying the weight of her impending decision. Each tick of the great clock in the hallway echoed like a countdown she both dreaded and craved. Desmond Carver stood before her, his dark eyes scanning the polished expanse of the room, but his thoughts strayed elsewhere. He approached Laelani, his breath quickening as he caught the sadness in her expression. "We can't wait much longer. They'll be here soon," he said, his voice steady, yet underscored by urgency. Laelani tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, a small gesture that belied her anxiety. "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Though the world outside threatened to intrude, within the walls of the manor, she felt ensnared by duty and deceit. Every corner of the estate echoed with memories of laughter, of countless tea parties, of the tightening grip of societal expectation. Yet, in this suffocating ambience, Desmond represented an unexpected refuge. With him, she felt shackled yet liberated, helpless yet found. The tension that simmered between them was tangible, a time bomb ready to explode at any moment. "Do you remember the first time we met?" she asked, attempting to recapture a moment of light in their shadowed passage. Desmond's lips curled into a faint smile, a memory flickering in his eyes. "You thought I was a poor imitation of a gentleman." He let out a soft laugh, filled with warmth that melted the chill of trepidation for a fleeting moment. "It was the way you misbuttoned your waistcoat that convinced me," Laelani teased, her smile fragile yet sincere. At that, Desmond stepped closer, closing the distance between them. The air grew thick with unspoken feelings, questions thousands of miles away from the surface laughter. I'm not the only one who's changed, Laelani. You're no longer the girl who only sat in the shadows. His gaze bore into hers, fierce and searching. You're so much more. You deserve a life that holds excitement, not this. Her heart raced at the fervor in his voice. As beautiful as his words were, she feared their implications. Desmond, we're playing a game with lives far more critical than ours, she whispered, feeling both empowered and terrified. Sometimes life demands that we play games. The seriousness of his tone matched the storm brewing outside, heartbeat by heartbeat. Amidst a moment of silence, the distant sound of a car engine rumbled in the driveway, sending an icy grip down Laelani's spine. They're here, she gasped, fear erupting in her chest. Desmond's hand reached out, encasing hers in his own, a powerful anchor in the tempest that threatened to swallow them both. Whatever happens, we face it together. A surge of vulnerability and impossible weight settled on her. This man, this butler turned protector, this friend turned steward of her heart, had sidestepped the carefully laid expectations of their world. The walls around her trembled under the sudden rush of emotion. But can we escape together? Really? He squeezed her hand tighter, the desperation behind his eyes drawing a reckless thrill of hope from her heart. We must, he declared, compelling her spirit to rise, to leap into the unknown. Freedom is waiting, Laelani. Their connection grew into a fierce fire, both passionate and tender, the weight of their impending choices hanging in the air, thick and palpable. In those seconds, time slipped away, and all that mattered was the electricity between their fingertips. With deliberate care, Desmond leaned in, whispering his promise so close that she could feel the warmth of his words brush against her skin. I'm not giving up on you, on us. The world outside blurred, fading into insignificance as Laelani met his intensity, weaving her own desires with his. The moment stretched, cradled in a sense of possibility, that maybe, just maybe, they could find reprieve in each other amidst the chaos. Outside, a group of figures emerged, quick strides leading them toward the manor, but within the heart of the estate, Laelani and Desmond discovered an intimacy layered with a newfound resolve, confident in their choice, yet trembling at the brink of their destiny. As the door creaked ominously, heralding their enemy's approach, Laelani's heart raced, not just from fear, but from an undeniable thrill of adventure and the stirrings of love. Then let's not waste another moment, she murmured, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Scene 45. The Dark Alliance. The air in Laelani Sinclair's drawing room was heavy with a tense stillness, the ornate chandelier casting a pale glow over the polished mahogany furniture, reflecting a world of elegance that felt increasingly like a gilded cage. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves, whispering secrets from the streets beyond, secrets Laelani yearned to uncover. Clad in a deep blue gown, she lounged by the grand window, her reflection shrouded in a shadow that more resembled her spirit than the opulence surrounding her. Lady Sinclair, Desmond Carver entered the room, his posture both formal and inviting, as if he carried secrets in that very lilt of his shoulders. He'd arrived at the cusp of dusk, footsteps barely disturbing the silence. Yet an electricity coursed through the space at the sight of him. I trust your day has been bearable? Be careful, Desmond, she replied, casting him a sidelong glance that promised both mischief and melancholy. Bearing is an art doomed to wariness. The shadow of her lips hinted at a smile, though the weight of obligation hung between them like a thick fog. Perhaps you need a reprieve from all that bearing. He moved closer, a breath of space between them, charged with unspoken words, memories of shared glances thickening the air. There's news that may. The door swung open abruptly, cutting off the tender moment. Junior, Laelani's friend and confidant, rushed in, her eyes glinting with urgency. Laelani, you must listen. Junior, your entrance lacks decorum, Laelani said, though the concern laced in her tone quelled any attempt at reprimand. Desmond, Junior nodded, acknowledging him in passing. You won't believe what I've discovered regarding Reginald. Laelani's husband, Reginald Sinclair, was a name that held both privilege and peril. What about him? Laelani asked, her heart skipping a beat as a sense of foreboding replaced her earlier calm. He's been meeting with some very unsavory characters, Junior said, the words tumbling out like rocks from a landslide. There are whispers, Laelani whispers, of a more dangerous trade than we imagined. You need to be careful. This is hardly news to me, Junior, Laelani replied, though now the chill of reality seeped deeper. Reginald mingles with the elite and the infamous alike. But these aren't just businessmen. These are criminals. Junior's voice trembled slightly, her conviction shaking the foundation of their bejeweled sanctuary. There's talk of power plays, and you can't trust him. Desmond's expression sharpened, his eyes narrowing. What exactly do you know? Junior hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. I can lead you to someone, a source who knows the ins and outs of Reginald's affairs. But it will be dangerous. He's gambling with more than just money, Desmond noted, his voice a low murmur, carrying a wealth of pragmatism that sent shivers down Laelani's spine. Dangerous is my middle name, Laelani declared, though she felt the tremor in her resolve. An internal war raged as she teetered on the edge of stepping into a realm fraught with peril or remaining shackled by her current existence. Desmond's gaze weighed heavily on her. He had seen too much, and now the time for whispers had passed. No, Junior interjected, her eyes wide and earnest. You can't just dive in without knowing the risks. There's something much bigger at play here. She paused, either awaiting acknowledgement or perhaps sensing the spark between Laelani and Desmond, an undeniable force pulling them toward each other, revealing more than just commitment to truth. Junior, you talk of danger, but what if I find freedom there? Laelani posed the question without realizing the weight of it, the yearning for both liberation from her stifling life and an undeniable pull toward the enigmatic man before her. Desmond's breath faltered as the moment hung precariously between them, anticipation riding high. Junior's unease mirrored Laelani's pulled heart, their friendship and looming risks intertwining. The glimmer of possibility shimmered, yet the velvet fabric of their lives threatened to fray at the seams. Come with me, Desmond finally urged, his voice smooth as silk, yet laced with the steel of urgency. If we do this together. The tension surged again as he stepped closer, their intimacy almost suffocating, their world reduced to the magnetic pull of proximity, when suddenly, foreboding steps sounded from outside. Shadows danced along the window, interrupting their fragile resolve. Laelani's heart raced. The stakes were higher than she had grasped, and yet, in the face of danger, the tempest of her emotions ready to burst free. Choose, Laelani. You can turn away, or you can embrace the truth, even if it means risking everything. What if the truth leads us to ruin? She whispered, caught between his promise and the ominous shadows looming on the threshold. Desmond's gaze held hers firmly, the warmth of his hand brushing against her arm igniting the room, wrapping them in danger and desire, setting the stage for an inevitable decision. In all love, he suggested, and the silence brimming with potential spoke volumes. Scene 46. Time of Reckoning. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the manicured gardens of Sinclair Manor. Laelani Sinclair stood at the wrought-iron gates, their age-worn paint flaking away like the layers of her own restrained existence. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine, teasing memories of a childhood steeped in freedom and laughter, far removed from the dizzying heights of affluence she now inhabited. As a light breeze tugged at her loose curls, she felt a shiver of trepidation curl in her stomach, mirroring the clouds gathering ominously above. Desmond Carver, a formidable presence, approached with his customary understated elegance. His dark eyes, usually so mesmerizing, now glinted under the copper flashes of a turbulent sky. A moment of silence stretched between them, fraught with unspoken confessions. They were two souls bound by an invisible thread of danger. The truth about her husband's machinations hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. "Are you ready?" Desmond asked, his voice low and steady, a weighty contrast to her whirling thoughts. Laelani swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. The choice she faced loomed larger than the formidable manor behind her. "I don't know if I can confront him, Desmond. It feels like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff." Desmond stepped closer, the heat radiating from him warming her chilled skin. "You must decide, Laelani. Your happiness isn't merely in his hands." From the corner of the garden, Sylvia, Laelani's sister, emerged, clutching her lavender shawl as an unexpected gust ruffled it. Her expression was a mixture of concern and determination. What's going on here? She interjected, her sharp gaze darting between the two. Just a talk, Laelani replied quickly, yet the crack in her facade was palpable. More than just a talk, Sylvia pressed, her voice carrying the undertones of their shared childhood, when secrets were huddled whispers beneath rustling leaves. You don't need to do this alone. You know we're here for you. I have to face him, Laelani declared, a sudden fierceness igniting within her. She found herself inching toward the manor, as if drawn by an unbreakable magnet. If I'm going to reclaim my life, it starts today. Then go, Sylvia urged, a fierce protective instinct stirring in her. But do you want me to be in the shadows, ready for anything? No, Laelani said definitively, shaking her head. This is mine to confront. But thank you. I need you, always. Sylvia nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of this moment, her sister stepping from the shadows into the bright glimmer of her own potential. As Laelani shifted her gaze back to Desmond, their fingers brushed, igniting a rush of electricity between them. Stay close, she whispered, the gravity of her choice settling around her like a velvet cloak. Desmond's slight nod was almost imperceptible. The bond they had forged in this whirlwind of secrets, desires, and unquenchable tension fortified her resolve. They moved toward the ochre door leading into the manor, each step echoing with the past, a past she was desperate to escape, but also afraid to abandon. Inside, the plush decor felt stifling, the luxury surrounding her suddenly heavy as a lead weight. Her husband, Marcus Sinclair, emerged from his study, his presence suffusing the space like a dark cloud. He possessed an unsettling charm, an undercurrent of menace masked under a genteel veneer. Laelani, he greeted, his tone somehow jovial yet laced with arrogance. I didn't expect you today. He caught sight of Desmond standing protectively at her side, and his eyebrows narrowed. Interesting choice of company. Desmond's not just a butler, Laelani said, her voice steady despite the losing battle of her heart. He's more of a friend than you've ever been. An imperceptible shift in the air heightened the tension, and Sylvia's warning echoed in Laelani's mind. Careful, my dear, Marcus replied, malignancy curling in his smile. Friendships can be dangerous, especially when they threaten what you value. Laelani glanced at Desmond, the heat radiating from him warming her resolve. I value honesty more than a gilded cage, Marcus. The challenge hung in the air, electric and ripe with possibility. Marcus's facade wavered for a moment, revealing a flicker of the man beneath, a predatory glimmer in his eyes. Laelani knew this was the beginning of her reckoning. Let's see how much you value that honesty when the truth comes knocking at your door, he replied, his voice a velvet threat. The weight of the uncharted territory ahead loomed larger, but determined fire sparked in Laelani's spirit. With a glance at Desmond, she felt the gentle promise of freedom, a taste of liberation, tantalizingly close yet inextricably entwined with peril. We'll see, Laelani said softly but firmly, stepping into the tumultuous storm of her new reality. Scene 47. A tendril of hope. The opulent drawing room lay shrouded in a muted haze from the autumn rain, watercolor brushstrokes of grey drenching the grand windows. The delicate clatter of droplets tapped against the glass, a mournful song echoing Laelani's turmoil. Flickering candlelight danced shadows across the mahogany walls, where gilded frames held portraits of ancestors whose cold gazes seemed to mock her indecision. She stood by the window, fingers tracing the rim of a wineglass, feeling the damp chill seep into her bones, mirroring the suffocating weight of her predicament. In the recess of her mind, the memories of her late father's laughter twined with the heaviness of her present, her husband's numerous late-night escapades, the whispers of wicked schemes that tainted their luxurious life. The buzz of impending danger crackled in the atmosphere, making her pulse race. Out there, somewhere beyond those raindrops, the shadows of her husband's empire loomed, suffocating yet compelling. Lady Laelani, a voice broke through her reverie, smooth as silk yet laced with tension. It was Desmond, stepping into the dimly lit room, his presence igniting a small flicker of warmth. He approached cautiously, concern etching his face, contrasting sharply against his typically composed demeanor. You shouldn't be alone like this. It's quite chilling. She turned, her breath catching as his stormy eyes met hers, a tempest of emotion swirling within them. The storm feels more than just an inconvenience, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, daring to unveil a truth that felt more like poetry than reality. It feels ominous. Desmond stepped closer, the rhythmic patter of rain forming a backdrop to their silent communion. Perhaps it's a chance for clarity. Sometimes the storm reveals what we hide away, what we truly want. He didn't speak, yet every fiber of his being proclaimed an undeniable truth. Laelani's heart raced as she felt the magnetism of his presence wrapping around her like the softest velvet. What if the clarity is terrifying? What if it compromises everything? She asked, each word a tentative step toward the edge of something profound. Sometimes we must embrace the fear, he replied softly, and the sincerity in his tone stirred something deep within her. There was a tenderness in his gaze that made her want to leap forward and reveal everything. The conflict, the longing, the unmistakable connection that fought against the chains of her marital duties. But tension hung thick in the air, as if they were balancing on the edge of a knife. The echoes of laughter from a distant gathering floated through the doors, remnants of a life she felt increasingly estranged from. Desmond, she hesitated, the weight of his name heavy on her tongue. The world slipped away. It was just the two of them now, framed by the shadows and candlelight, two souls entwined in the eye of their storm. Then, unexpectedly, Desmond closed the distance. He lifted her chin gently, their breaths mingling, warm and tantalizing amidst the cool air. What if I told you there's a way out, a path to freedom? His words hung like ripe fruit, tempting her to reach out and grasp what could be. Laelani's heart thudded against her ribs, a symphony of yearning and desperation. The flicker of hope ignited as she closed her eyes, surrendering to the moment, trusting him. What if? She breathed, inching closer, a cascade of emotion washing over her. It was beautiful and terrifying, the thrill of crossing an unspoken boundary. Their lips met, igniting an electric connection, a tender mingling of warmth and sweet urgency that sent ripples through her very core. Desmond's kiss was both a declaration and a question, an invitation into the unknown that pulsed with longing and danger. It was everything society forbade, and yet felt so right. As the kiss deepened, the world outside faded away, the rain possibly receding into the background, now just a memory of the storm that once felt drowning. In that intimate serenity, Laelani felt, for perhaps the first time, a tendril of hope unfurling in the depths of her heart. As they finally pulled apart, breathless and trembling, Desmond's whisper broke the lingering silence. No matter how heavy the storm, we can find our way through. Will you stay? She asked, the gravity of her request echoing against the walls that had felt so confining before. Always, he vowed, sealing their unspoken pact as the rain continued its relentless rhythm. Scene 48. Chains of Control. The marble floors of the Sinclair estate gleamed under the soft glow of the afternoon sun, casting elongated shadows that danced across the lavish sitting room. Laelani stood by the bay window, her fingers tracing the delicate lines of the lace drapes, the faint scent of jasmine wafting in through the slightly ajar window. Desmond, his gaze steady and intense, leaned against the ornate mantel, arms crossed. Do you ever wonder how many lies have been whispered in this house? Desmond's voice broke the charged silence. Laelani turned her head, the sunlight catching the gleam of her dark curls. What do you mean? Desmond stepped closer, the weight of unspoken truths hanging in the air. Your husband's world thrives on deception, Laelani. You feel it, don't you? She hesitated, the words crumbling in her throat. I feel trapped, but this is my life. I have to smile, play the role. Desmond's eyes darkened, revealing a flicker of something more than the safe distance they had maintained. Or you could fight back. You have a choice. Her breath caught as she swept her eyes from the comforting yet confining room to the sprawling gardens beyond. Sometimes I think about escaping to be free of the chains. Then why don't you? His tone softened, urging her to confront the truth she skirted around. Laelani faced him fully, determination flaring in her gaze. Because I can't just abandon everything. That would mean leaving you behind. Before she could finish, a loud crash interrupted them, reverberating from the hallway. Startled, they exchanged a quick glance, and Desmond's body tense in anticipation. What was that? Laelani said, her voice rising. Stay here, he commanded, heading toward the doorway with measured steps. As Desmond disappeared into the corridor, Laelani leaned against the cool wall, her heart pounding against her chest. She grasped the edge of the window frame, feeling the rough wood under her fingertips. She could hear muffled voices and scuffled footsteps. "What's happening?" she murmured under her breath, just as Michelle, a close friend and fellow socialite, strode into the sitting room with a breathless urgency. "Lani, the men, your husband's men, they're here." Michelle's eyes were wide, her breaths quickening the air around them. This must be linked to those rumors, the money laundering. Laelani felt the ground beneath her shift, every fear she buried racing to the surface. "But they're not supposed to be here," Michelle insisted, clutching her arm. "We need to leave." But Laelani's thoughts were already whirling, and the thought of Desmond confronting danger made her stomach clench. "No, I can't leave him." Michelle shot her a look of disbelief. "You'd risk everything for a butler? You need to think, Lani." "Desmond's more than just a butler," Laelani snapped, her voice rising. "He's the only one who sees me. He understands this life." The tension thickened as the echoes of a dispute crescendoed in the hall. Raised voices, a bark of laughter, the sound of a rough shove. Laelani's heart raced with adrenaline, her body aligning with the urgency in her mind. Outside, Desmond confronted a tall figure, shadowed by the doorframe, their confrontation becoming a stark dance of authority. "You shouldn't be here, Rafe," Desmond stated coolly. "This is my house, butler. You're playing a dangerous game." Rafe's narrowed eyes flashed with entitlement, the arrogance of Laelani's husband's enforcer palpable. Around the corner, a few of the household staff lurked, eyes wide with fear, whispering among themselves. "Let's go, this isn't safe," one of them murmured to another, glancing apprehensively toward Laelani's room. Laelani turned to Michelle, the heat of determination igniting her resolve. "I can't keep playing this game. I have no choice but to stand by Desmond." "Lani, you're talking about a life-and-death situation." Michelle gripped her arm tighter, desperation entwined with confusion. "We can't turn our backs on what's right," Laelani replied fiercely, eyes sparking with tempered defiance. "I will fight for him." The crux of their conversation loomed, echoing the turmoil around them, binding them together in the weight of uncertainty and a passion that promised liberation. In that moment, the chain of control forged by her husband began to fracture, the fabric of loyalty fraying against the discord of freedom. With a shared glance, they heard Desmond's voice rise above the noise. "If you come any closer, I won't hesitate." Laelani's breath caught as she charged toward the commotion, heart pounding with something more powerful than fear resolve. "I'm not leaving without him," she declared, as the chaos of her world began to shift beneath her feet, setting the stage for a new, dangerous chapter. Scene 49. Clarity in chaos. The heavy rain lashed against the grand windows of the Sinclair estate, a symphony of chaos that echoed the turmoil inside Laelani's heart. Beneath the shadows of the old oak hearth, she confronted the flickering flames that danced like the secrets she harbored. The crackling fire provided light, but it did little to warm the chill creeping into her bones as she faced Desmond, the enigmatic figure who had disrupted her perfectly ordered life. "Do you really believe that freedom comes without sacrifice?" Laelani's voice trembled, caught between defiance and a yearning she couldn't articulate. The storm outside raged, thunder rumbling overhead as if to punctuate her words. Desmond, poised yet visibly on edge, stepped closer, the undeniable heat of his presence making her pulse quicken. "Sometimes, the greatest sacrifices are the ones we choose to make. But do you believe that life will remain unchanged if you stay here, trapped in a gilded cage?" His eyes, dark and compelling, searched hers, attempting to peel back the layers of her resolve. Laelani clenched her fists, longing to break free from the societal chains that bound her. In her mind's eye, she envisioned the wildflowers of the estate's hidden gardens, their beauty unrestrained by walls or expectations. "What do you suggest I do? Run away?" she countered, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Isn't that what you want?" He replied, the intensity of his gaze unyielding. "The chance to explore not just the world, but yourself. Don't let the fear of your husband's wrath dictate your choices." "And what do you know of my choices?" Laelani snapped, but even as she said it, the words felt hollow. She caught a glimpse of confusion in Desmond's expression, a glimpse of the man behind the butler's facade. They were both trapped in this warped reality, where love was a dangerous game and secrets could shatter their fragile existence. As if on cue, thunder cracked, drowning their voices in its booming presence. In that moment, the tension was palpable, thickening the air between them. Laelani turned away, her heart racing. Just then, the door swung open, revealing a fragmented group of guests mingling in the corridor, oblivious to the storm of emotions swirling in the room. "I can't believe she's still wearing that dreadful gown," scoffed Miss Clara, eyes darting to Laelani as she adjusted her own lavish but gaudy ensemble. The scent of perfume wafted through, mixing with the trace of smoke in the room. The other guests laughed, voices echoing through the hall, but their laughter felt malicious, as if they revelled in Laelani's discomfort. "Clara, you're one to talk," chimed in Ewan, the ever-boisterous family friend. He tossed an adoring glance at Laelani, trying to break the icy atmosphere. At least Laelani knows how to maintain grace while under siege. His charming smile only irritated Desmond more, his jaw tightening visibly. "We're all subjects of the same fate," Desmond said, the response laced with an underlying threat. "Some of us choose to rise above it, while others sink into the dirt." The guests' chatter briefly dimmed, heads turning towards the butler, who spoke with such sudden fervour. "Must you always be such a melancholic figure?" Clara interjected, feigning ignorance, while her insincere smile seemed permanent. "We're here to celebrate after all. You'd think it was a funeral instead of a grand ball." As laughter resonated around the room, Laelani caught Desmond's intense gaze again. This time, the storm within her mirrored the tempest outside, waves crashing against the shore of her conscience. Could she ever find her way out of this chaos? "Tell me, Desmond," she breathed, her voice low, "if I were to leave tonight, truly leave, would you come with me?" The sharpness of her words hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Desmond stepped closer, the chaos of the world outside blurring into insignificance. "You know I would. Just say the word, Laelani." In that moment, she felt clarity cutting through the tumult. The choice laid bare before her. The heat surged between them, and yet the racing storm outside felt like a gentle embrace compared to the fire igniting in her heart. What will it be? The simplicity of his question pierced through her hesitation, leaving her breathless. As their eyes locked, the world outside faded, and in that suspenseful stillness, she realized. Sometimes it took chaos to reveal what truly mattered. Scene 50, Hope's Embrace. Desmond leaned against the polished mantel of the drawing room, its intricate carvings reflecting the soft glow of the evening sun filtering through the tall windows. Laelani paced before him, her fingers intertwining restlessly. The tension between them crackled like the fireplace flames, remnants of heated arguments still lingering in the air. "Do you really think it's that simple?" Laelani asked, her voice rising before she caught herself, swallowing the urgency of her emotions. Desmond's cool demeanor unnerved her, but it also ignited a deeply buried spark within. "You have to choose, Laelani," he said quietly, his gaze unwavering, each word heavy with unspoken implications. "Is it your husband's empire you want to maintain, or the freedom you crave?" The silence was thick, suspended in the air like the last breath before a storm breaks. Laelani stopped her pacing, her heart pounding, the reality of the choice before her sending cold fingers of doubt creeping up her spine. The very walls around her felt like a gilded cage, adorned yet suffocating. "And what good is my freedom if it comes at such a cost?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Perhaps the cost has already been paid." Desmond stepped closer, the tension shifting palpably. "You know this isn't just about us. There are forces at play that could destroy everything." The thought echoed in the corners of Laelani's mind, where shadows of threats lingered, all connected to the man she had once called a partner. Her breath caught as she looked into Desmond's eyes. They were stormy and filled with a depth that pulled her in, a promise of passion interlaced with danger. The weight of her decision pressed upon her chest, making her limbs feel heavy, yet the spark of rebellion ignited in her soul. "Do you think I asked for this?" she challenged softly, stepping into his space, her eyes searching his for sincerity. "For everything to turn upside down, for you to become this?" For a moment, the world outside faded. The rustling leaves and distant laughter of servants dissolved into a distant hum. Their faces drew closer, breaths mingling, a silent understanding navigating between them. "I didn't choose to be the butler of a man who commands fear," Desmond murmured, brushing back an errant curl from her forehead. The intimacy sparked another layer of heat between them. "I could never have anticipated that you would challenge the very foundations of my life." "Then what are we doing?" she asked, vulnerability slipping through the cracks of her bold facade. "I thought you wanted." "Wanted?" He interrupted, suddenly pulling back as if the word itself could ignite a fire. "I want to protect you, Laelani, even if it means letting go." Her heart raced, confusion swirling like leaves caught in an autumn gale. "Letting go? You speak like we have nothing. This is real, Desmond." Before he could respond, the door swung open, and Felicity, with her vivacious spirit practically pulsing from her, burst into the room. "Oh, my dear Laelani, you positively glow. Have you?" "Felicity," Laelani interjected, an edge creeping into her voice. "Not now." "What's wrong?" Felicity halted her joyful antics, her smile faltering at Laelani's serious expression. "Can't you see?" Desmond replied with an edge of irritation. "This is not a moment for..." Bristling, Felicity crossed her arms playfully, eager to diffuse the tension. "A moment for what? Dramatic confessions? Or should we escalate to tearing each other's hair out?" Laelani took a breath, attempting to harmonize her chaotic emotions. "Sometimes the truth feels more like an impending tragedy than a catharsis, Felicity." Desmond embraced the moment of levity, a flicker of a smirk breaking his intensity. "Maybe we should just practice our hair-pulling techniques then." "Oh, please, Desmond." Felicity shot back, her grin returning along with her mischievous spirit. "You couldn't pull off a dramatic reveal if your life depended on it." The tension ebbed slightly, laughter bubbling beneath the surface. But as the air cleared, Laelani couldn't shake the gravity of the choice that loomed above them. She took Desmond's hand, the simple act electric, and whispered, "There isn't much time. We must decide how much we're willing to risk." "Together," Desmond replied, steely determination igniting in his eyes, their entwined fingers a pledge in the midst of chaos. As external laughter echoed in the corridor, inside, a fierce resolve took root, binding their fates together in love and defiance, ready to face the storm. Scene 51, The Calm Before the Storm. Desmond Carver stood next to the sprawling mahogany dining table, a single candle flickering in the elegantly appointed room. The rich scent of sandalwood wafted through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly cut blooms from the nearby vase. Its flickering glow painted shadows on the walls, creating an intimate atmosphere that felt almost fragile amidst the chaos brewing outside. Laelani Sinclair entered, her presence cloaked in a delicate silk gown that whispered against her skin. As she approached the table, the fabric shimmered under the candlelight, and Desmond's breath hitched slightly. Their eyes met, and for a moment the weight of all that was unsaid surged between them. "We're quite good at creating illusions, aren't we?" Laelani remarked softly, her voice tinged with a playful edge, yet her gaze reflected a deeper tension. "Dinner in a palace while the kingdom crumbles outside the walls." Desmond's lips curled into a faint smile. "Sometimes it's the only armor we have." He stepped closer, the distance between them evaporating. "What if we just stopped pretending?" "Stop pretending," she echoed, her brow arching. "And do what? Face the truth?" The air thickened with unspoken emotions, their intimacy pulsing in time with the flickering candle. Desmond leaned against the table, arms crossed, eyes locked onto hers. "In this moment, we can choose to be free." Laelani's heart raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration swirling within her. She looked away, taking in the fine china and candles as though they could hold the secrets trapped in their hearts. "And what would that freedom really mean for us?" she asked, her tone barely more than a whisper. Desmond's voice dropped, low and compelling. "It means we step beyond the roles written for us. You're not merely the dutiful wife. I'm not just the butler. We are so much more." The pause lingered, stretching beyond the limits of their surroundings as Laelani absorbed his words. A fleeting vulnerability danced across her face, the reminder of her husband's looming criminal empire, the gilded cage that held her prisoner. "I want to believe that," she finally admitted, her breath hitching. "But if we break free, where do we begin?" Desmond raised a hand, gently brushing against hers on the table. The softness of her skin ignited a silent flame in them both. "We can begin wherever we choose. with one kiss, perhaps. Laelani's heart fluttered violently as she turned to face him fully, the steely resolve of her gaze unyielding yet vulnerable. If I say yes, then there's no turning back. You understand that, don't you? More than you might think. He leaned closer, awareness swirling around them like a tangible aura. Though they'd played their parts impeccably, tonight felt different. The air crackled with a tension that demanded to be released. Desmond's thumb brushed against her knuckles, igniting sparks of warmth that coursed through her veins. We owe it to ourselves to be honest about what we desire. Holding on to secrets can be more dangerous than confronting them, Laelani replied, uncertainty threading her voice. Will it change us? Your happiness is the most important thing to me. Let that be the guide, Desmond said, the sincerity in his eyes momentarily disarming her rational thoughts. A shiver ran down her spine as she considered his words, a whispered promise cloaked in possibility. The tension between them throbbed, a silent question hanging in the air. Would they risk everything for a future fraught with danger, but tantalizingly vibrant with the thrill of potential? Without thinking, her hand shifted to grip his. Time slowed as they both leaned closer, breaths mingling in the space that separated them. A heartbeat away, their energy surged, igniting a spark that felt electric. Their lips met in a gentle collision, tender at first, but building a sense of urgency as they melded into one another, exploring the depths of unvoiced longing and raw emotion. It was the calm before the storm they had both feared and desired, a moment that felt like an eternity, promising fervor and peril in equal measure. As they pulled away, both breathless and wide-eyed, Laelani murmured, "What if it all falls apart?" Desmond brushed a lock of hair behind her ear, his gaze steady and intense. "Then we'll face it together, whatever comes next." He held her gaze, anchoring them both in a reality that stood on the precipice of a whirlwind. In the quiet aftermath, every shared second felt like the beginnings of their rebellion against fate. Scene 52. The ultimate confrontation. A relentless storm brewed over the Sinclair estate, dark clouds swirling like molten smoke against the slate-grey sky. Heavy raindrops lashed against the grand windows, each thud resonating through the halls like the ominous bass of a war drum. The air inside felt stifling, electric, the kind of tension that made every breath a conscious decision. Laelani Sinclair stood in the opulent foyer, a relentless pulse of fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins as she glanced at Desmond Carver, her heart racing in rhythm with the tempest outside. "Are you ready?" Desmond asked, his voice low, steady, a calm amidst the brewing storm. He adjusted the collar of his dark coat, the crisp fabric carrying a hint of cedar and spice that wrapped around Laelani, grounding her in a moment that felt as fleeting as the wind. Laelani nodded, her indigo silk dress flowing liquid midnight against the marble floor. She took a step closer to him, the intensity of his presence igniting a flame of confidence within her. "With you, I feel like I can handle anything," she whispered, their eyes locking for an electric moment that threatened to unravel the world beyond. But just as the charged air began to weave a web of intimacy, the imposing figure of Erotic Sinclair, Laelani's husband, filled the entryway. His stature loomed like an ill-omened shadow. The elegance of his tailored clothing betrayed an underlying ferocity, his sharp features grim and hardened by the weight of revelation. Rain dripped from his black hat, pooling ominously at his feet. "And what do we have here, my dear?" he asked, voice dripping with malice yet cloaked in false politeness. Laelani's breath hitched, the moment shattered. She instinctively drifted back toward Desmond, finding solace in the man she had grown to trust. "Alaric," she managed, straightening her spine even as her heart raced. "We were just what? Planning your little escape?" He chuckled darkly, a sound that sent shivers down Laelani's spine. The air crackled, thick with resentment and betrayal. "You thought you could leave me without consequence." Desmond stepped forward, the air between them thick with unspoken conflict. "It's not like that, Alaric," he said, his tone even but laced with defiance. "You've subjected her to an arrangement that's suffocating. She deserves more than this hollow existence." Alaric's eyes narrowed, and a sardonic smile flickered across his lips. "Is that so? Tell me, Desmond," he leaned in, voice low and lethal. "What do you think you can offer her instead? Your charming smile? Some romantic fairy tale?" he scoffed, the sound echoing with disdain. You're a mere servant, and she's a Sinclair. Desmond's eyes burned with intensity as he straightened, the tension palpable, like the strain before a storm's climax. I offer her honesty and freedom, something you've never understood. Suddenly, the air shifted, thundering rain shifting to violent hammering against the windows as if the heavens themselves protested the confrontation. Alaric's gaze flicked to the heavy front door, fury alive in his eyes. You think you can take her away from me? Think again, you misguided fool. He lunged forward, fists clenched, a primal energy radiating off him. Stop! Laelani shouted, stepping between them, her voice a whirlwind of urgency. She felt her heart thunder, mirroring the storm outside. This has to end, Alaric. You cannot keep me trapped in this gilded cage. In a flash of violence, Alaric surged forward, but Desmond was quicker, deflecting the blow and shoving Alaric back with fierce determination. The force propelled Alaric toward the grand staircase, the ornate banister splintering beneath his weight as he stumbled. Stay back, Alaric, Desmond commanded, fists raised, each muscle coiled like a drawn bowstring. You need to let her go. You're suffocating her. You think this is some game? Alaric spat, regaining his balance before charging again, fists swinging, shaking the structure with each effort. I will not let you destroy my world. As Desmond blocked another blow, Laelani sensed the tumultuous storm outside beginning to pale in comparison to the tempest brewing within the mansion's walls. As she tried to interject again, her voice melted into a fierce mix of their fears, desires, and screams as the very ground beneath them felt caught in the whirlpool of betrayal. Each blow exchanged echoed in the silence of the manor, punctuated only by the raging storm outside, and Laelani searched for a semblance of the love she once had for Alaric through the chaos. Enough, she cried out, their struggles stilling for a moment. All of us have been imprisoned, whether by walls or our dysfunction, but I choose to break free. The thunder rumbled, a fitting accompaniment to her declaration. With stormy fury, the rain fell as if to wash away their sins, leaving only the echo of a promise yet to be fulfilled. A promise that, together, they could seize control of their lives. Desmond's storm-grey eyes searched hers, the belief in his gaze igniting a beacon of hope. Then let's seize it, he murmured, as the conflict between the three surged, waves of emotion crashing relentlessly against the walls of their lives. The outcome hung by a delicate thread as they prepared for what must come next.